As a previous college athlete, as well as a lifelong fitness enthusiast, this next guest shares his quest on what he does to keep his mind and body in precision shape. I personally have seen him grow both professionally and physically over almost a decade now, and his drive to help others reach their maximum potential deserves showcasing. This is David Archer, and you're watching Driven. All right, David Archer. So I'm looking at here, soccer coach, Olympic development program, collegiate training, bodybuilding competitor, managing a nutrition shop, personal training. Who are you in high school?
Who was I in high school? I had a small group of friends, but pretty well kept to myself. I drew a lot. Okay. Fell in love with soccer. That's when I first started playing. Yeah. And just spent a lot of time on the ball and hung out with my brothers. That's about it. Okay. Yeah.
So the word around not just South Austin, but throughout South Austin has been like, this is the guy for fitness. And I remember 10, 11 years ago hearing your name. I would see you in the gym and, hey, that's David Archer right there. And was it around that time that you were competing, training, or more or less?
Well, I appreciate the kind words, first of all. Yeah. That was all unbeknownst to me. But I would say specifically for the training, competing
that
aspect
time frame
of it,
in particular, yeah.
I did my first couple of shows in 2011, okay. Mid to late 2011. One was, I think, the Naturally Fit Super Show was my first one, and then the Shredder Classic, I believe, was no, I'm sorry. There's the Texas State Naturals was the second one.
Really?
But it was about that time. It was about that time where I started to move away from the first level of soccer and actually
I want to see the transition period into that.
And kind of move into that space of, okay, well, now I'm not just training to be faster, to be able to jump higher, to have quicker feet, but the game changed for me. The frame was now, well, what can I do with my body as far as not just what it looks like, but the process inside the gym that leads to that particular result. Okay. So, it was, to answer your question, it was about 2011 when I started making those degree shifts.
Okay, so the soccer coaching, was it college, high school, or?
It was a little bit of everything, man. I started coaching when I was still playing ball at Texas State. Okay. And had a couple of youth teams and one rec team, and that was fun, just kind of getting my feet wet. As a young guy, still having aspirations to play professional. And then moving into a place where now I had to teach the game. The environment is so different from the kids all the way up to the collegiate level. So that's when I first started. That's when I first started coaching. Had a couple teams, got a short-term spot as a director of coaches there in San Marcos. Okay. And then worked for a couple clubs there on after and went from there. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Was the drive more because you enjoy the competition aspect or just something to do? Because, I've talked to multiple people about what they've done in life, and a lot of them say, well, I wasn't really doing nothing at the time. I came from Iowa, and in Iowa we just drank beer and whatever. Yeah. So they did certain things just to have something to do. But what was your specific reasoning first for getting into sports, which then became the transition into actual total body type of fitness?
Sure. So the two mainstays in my life had always been the creative arts. Okay. Drawing in particular, graphite, charcoal, my two mediums. Okay. And then athletics. Those are two things that the athletics was something that my dad really enjoyed, really tried to instill in us for a myriad of reasons. And then the artistic side was something that was organic in me, something that he supported that particular flow to. Okay. So when I found soccer, it was just because, like, hey, I swam for a couple of years. I played lacrosse. Played the hot corn, Little League for a little while, flag football, all that stuff. And I found soccer and I fell in love with it. Wow. And so at the age of 15, I was like, you know what, I'm going to pour myself into this thing. Okay. And I know that whatever I pour myself into, I get good at really quick, and I learn to love it through that process. Yeah.
And what year was this, by the way? Around what time?
15.
What year-wise?
Oh, this was 94.
Okay.
So, sorry, I was 14. 14 years old when I first started playing soccer.
I see.
So it became a passion of mine before I had the aspiration of, man, I want to play pro. And then before that, high school was coming to an end. I said, man, I want to keep playing this game. So not a lot of people know this, but I went to college exclusively because I knew it was a gateway for me to continue playing ball.
Really?
That was it. That was the only reason. And now things changed there and after because my things expanded, my circle of influence expanded, that competency, confidence loop allowed me to continue to grow. But to answer your question, it was always a passion project first, something that I really loved, but also because of the competition, because of what it gave back to me, was something I felt like I needed.
I see.
So,
damn. So it was basically it was the drive to just keep going. With soccer, it's like you got the high school aspect of it. It's like I want to take it to another level, another level. So how did you transition into the next thing, and what was the next thing?
How did I transition? Well, I was coaching I coached the women's club team for a couple years at Texas State. We did really, really well there. And then got hired on at my first NCAA school up in North Austin, right when they moved the campus, Concordia.
Okay,
right when they moved it.
4 Points area.
Yeah, 4 Points area. Yeah, so it's up there by 620.
22, yeah.
Beautiful campus if you haven't been. But I was coaching there, and that's when I first got my first corporate personal training gig at the 24-hour fitness there off of Lake Creek. Okay. And so that was kind of like...
You were, what, 20... Early 20s maybe, or?
No, by that point, I didn't get to college until I was, well, I kind of started, had a year on, a year off, a year on.
Yeah.
So I didn't graduate and start my master's until I was 20, what year was it, 26?
Okay.
So by the time I got to 24-hour fitness and coaching at Concordia, I was 28.
So you were on the extended plan.
I was, yeah. I was a little bit delayed on that, on that progression model. But yeah, that's kind of where that transition started to hit. And as far as pushing for a head coaching job somewhere in the college ranks, either I missed the mark or didn't have a contact or something, whatever happened, and I wasn't able to push through. And that's when I literally just packed up all my polos, all my shirts, socks, shorts, put it in and I just put it up on a shelf and I said, you know what, forget it. I'm just gonna have fun and lift weights. And that's literally what I did for a year and a half. Everything was about having fun, enjoying life, and just lifting weights. And it's definitely a very bro approach.
Hey, but sometimes your circle of influence can cause that to happen, though. But let me ask you this question before we move on. Your overall thoughts of college while you were there, the people that were getting their degrees and whether they were using them or not, looking back at it now, what are your overall thoughts of if somebody needs a college degree for doing what they really want to do?
That's a
and
loaded one.
Full honesty
that's a loaded one. So if we just consider, I'm gonna take a very narrow approach here. If we just consider the variable of what the social media landscape has offered for those youngsters, those high school kids, those kids college age.
Past 10 years, 15 years.
Past 10 years, yeah, especially last 4 to 7 years. As far as being able to generate an income, significantly different than even from when I was in college, and a completely different world from the high school time. So does somebody need a university degree in order to make a living? My answer is absolutely not.
Okay. I agree with that.
That's my personal decision. However, that microcosm, that culture, although unrealistic in a lot of ways, can still provide a very, very good platform for those who, like me, didn't necessarily have certain contacts. I was a super shy kid in high school. That's something I didn't mention.
Let me ask you, are you still socially shy now, though?
No. Okay. No, definitely not, because some of that sales experience I had brought it out of me, and just that drive to be like, hey man, I have to do this thing. That means you have to go make this conversation. You have to make this call.
It forced you to become socially.
And so a lot of those things coming from that deep desire to create this ultimate life, this ultimate result.
I see what you're saying.
So, and I'll try not to go on a tangent, but do you absolutely need college to be successful? No, not at all. Now, if you're going to something technical, some sort of trade school, something where, especially in
doctor, attorney,
something like
certification that you have to have.
Yeah, there are certain things that you're not going to be able to realistically perform a duty, perform a job or service, or create a product if you don't necessarily have those things backing.
True.
You know, so there's definitely the give and take, the gray areas of that.
I see.
But yeah, my personal opinion is is college necessary? Absolutely not. Can it be a huge advantage? Absolutely.
Yeah, depending on what you're getting into. And
yeah.
Okay, so what was the next step for you now?
Are you talking about from graduation?
Yeah. So once you graduated, you went into the North Austin. You were training over there.
Yeah. So I was actually started my master. I kind of panicked, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I'll just take my GRE, which I did awful in. Okay. I've never been great in standardized tests. Practical application stuff, I kill it.
Yeah.
But the tests, I got in to the master's program at Texas State, and they made it painfully clear that exclusively because I'd already graduated from Texas State. And so there was like a rule that they allowed me in on a probationary period.
Yeah.
So
got hooked up, basically.
Yeah, they basically hooked me up. So long story short, I ended up coaching. I was like, man, I love this. I want to push this through. So I ended up not finishing my master's. Okay. Pushing into that. You hear the story. It didn't work out very well. I ended up getting the job at the supplement store. Okay. And literally just pills and powders of my life, and lifting and just enjoying myself. Okay. You know, and that lasted about 1.5 to 2 years before I said, okay, you know, I've time to slow things down a little bit and actually
just pump it up with something. I guess, and I want your thoughts real
quick. Just life in general.
Pump
it up with something. It was like, because again, this was for me kind of and I hate to use this term, coming of age, because I was like 30 when I finally came out. So you're still kind of in
the bro type of? Or?
I kind of moved into it. I was always on the outskirts, kind of looked at it just because having played, being on a team, you're going to see some of that no matter what, right? But I was the guy that was like, man, Archer never freaking parties with us. He never hangs out with us. Like I would do it just because, like, hey, you're not passing me the ball, maybe because you don't see me at the party. I'm not sure. That was kind of speculation. But in any case, there was some social requisite to continue congealing as part of a team. And so I saw some of that bro scenario for a lot of my life and never really entered into it voluntarily until that kind of coming of age sort of time for me. So like I said, it only lasted a couple of years before I decided, you know, I'm actually going to take some direction, because living purposelessly was not my cup of tea.
So before we move on, I have a question, because for the people that are watching that are either into fitness or the ones getting into fitness, okay, what are your thoughts on the BCAAs? You got to have your greens. You got to have this. You got to have this. You know, I know obviously it's totally changed in the past 10 years. Supplements that are available. Sure. It's like now there's a million things that you have to take, right, to get any kind of results, or what they say you have to take to get any kind of results. What are your true thoughts on supplements, and what do you currently take? Just out of curiosity.
Okay, so you're asking.
Or do you have a muscle filter on right now?
I do have a muscle filter on. It's like the shirt. It's a large shirt with Baby Gap medium sleeves.
Oh, there we go.
That's the trick. So are you asking? Is this like, hey, someone's getting into fitness for themselves, or they want to get into the coaching
for themselves? For themselves, because we're gonna get, because I like, you know, I follow your content. And you talk, it's not just a physical thing, but a mind thing also.
Yeah, absolutely.
But first I want to talk about what you're putting into the body, if it's a bunch of toxins of whatever nonsense.
Let me go ahead and move this out of the screen. No.
Yeah, the proprietary blends that they say on all of these labels, that nobody really knows what's inside of it. Yeah. So what are your honest thoughts and opinions on all of that extra stuff that you put inside your body? And do you really need it or not? Be honest.
Yeah, so there's kind of a lot of moving parts to that, or the multifaceted Venn diagram to what's going to make sense for that individual, right? So for me, as a coach, mentor, trainer, when someone asks me that, a client asks me that, a buddy asks me that at the gym, what I'll do is I'll check those boxes first, say, hey, are you sleeping well? What type of movement are you doing? Are you training in a way that you enjoy? You know, are X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. The things that speak to, are they happy hormonally? Okay. Are they taking in proper nutrition in a way that makes sense for the way that they're training? What about their body type, the age, their training age, they're like all those things.
Daily habits.
Daily habits.
Where do you work at, type of thing?
Yeah, environmental stress, whether external or internal. Okay. So where are they? What's that whole piece of pie before we start layering it with all the different toppings, i.e. the supplements and stuff? Like you got to see what you're working with, right? Okay. And so when I intake process for a new client, I'll ask them a bunch of those questions to see where are they inside of that process.
So somewhat like an assessment of initial assessment.
Yeah, an initial assessment to see where they are and say, okay, well, based on what you're telling me, assuming self-reporting is accurate, based on what you're telling me, here's what might make sense for you. So here's the map that we're going to apply for the first 2 to 3 months.
I see.
Right? And so that's when, in part, that relationship feedback starts to happen. So that way, as we move forward, and hey, Joe works in an office with crap fluorescent lighting 12 hours a day.
12 hours sitting down, filing papers.
Yeah, sitting down, then this is the type of movement that's going to make sense for him. Maybe he takes a vitamin D supplement. He takes a magnesium supplement. He's, what is his diet looking like? Is he eating boatloads of carbs when activity is low? And he's not insulin sensitive, then we need to adjust that. So supplements are always part of the 4 pillars of nutrition.
Which are?
First one is always energy balance for me. The second one is understanding and applying skillfully macros, your carbs, your proteins, and your fats. Next one is micronutrients, which you don't really pay a lot of attention to, and you can cover well with
Would that be like greens and such, or no?
Yeah, molybdenum, antioxidants, selenium, like the stuff that you wouldn't necessarily track, say, like on a MyFitnessPal app.
Or even know what the hell it is.
Or even know what the hell it is, yeah. So that's usually covered with, half your plate is colorful vegetables, that sort of thing.
I see.
So it's that, and then supplementation. Then finally after that, we're looking at skillfully, systematically looking at what's your daily adherence, or what's the lifestyle influences that are going to change the route on the map that you're taking to the best you. And so those 4 pillars I teach linearly, but they happen concurrently.
I see.
And so again, I feel like when people ask me this question, they're like, hey, what do you think about this specific thing, and this is exactly why, and what are you taking? That's a journey.
Well, because we're curious. It's human curiosity, because I know, depending on, let's say if I go to any gym, Gold's Gym or 24, and I say, this is what they're going to say, what's your goal, blah, blah, blah. And I might get a trainer that doesn't talk about the stuff you talk about. I might get a trainer that is very critical on every angle, every aspect of my life. But as a human, I might feel like, oh, they're just trying to get me in for 3 sessions per week. They want this. And that's something, because I'm curious about that, because I'm like, okay, well, do you need supplements? Do you not need supplements? But I know that's a whole nother conversation in itself. What supplements to really take. But now that you know the body and what the body needs to do for conditioning and environment and all that, how does it connect to the mind? Because a lot of your content, it's now going from physical to now mental. So where is in your whole journey? Because I've noticed, over the past couple of years following your content, I see it's now transitioning more into the mind kind of state.
Absolutely. And I think
is that the right way to say it, or?
Yeah, the mindset, the theater of the mind, life is perception. You think, therefore you are. That sort of thing. And for me, my fitness journey, and thank you for following it. And
because you're an interesting person, though, and I see you're really about total body, not just fitness, but well-being. You know, you're not a person that just says, all right, guys, I'm in the gym, I'm benching 450 or whatever it is. Because there are those muscle heads, whether it's on Instagram or Facebook or wherever it is, that's all they want to show off, just how much they can lift, how big their muscles are. But people that follow your content, and I say this a lot, it's educational content. Are you giving some educational content of your industry to people to even want to care who you are and even follow you?
So in large part, and I do kind of want to make the side note that there's always something to consider. Always look to understand first before you look to be understood. Is a really neat way that I've experienced to approach life. And so when we see the guy who just posts up 3 videos a week of him bench pressing, that might be, we don't know what that guy's story is. You know? And for him, that he might be a bro. He might be the guy that's not doing good by anybody else, but he also
maybe self-esteem is so low and he feels that he needs to do that to get the self-esteem.
Exactly. It could be, but whatever the case is, he's showing up. right?
I see.
And he is showing up in a way that he feels best in. She is showing up in a way that she feels best in. Now, maybe we don't know where they are in the process of how they're showing up and what state of power they're stepping into, but we do know that that guy's benching and he's showing it, and hopefully he's doing it in a way that he perceives he's doing to lift somebody else up. And so
to inspire somebody else.
To inspire somebody, yeah. And so for me, what you've seen over the course of years with my content has been an organic, natural maturation of the reflection of my personal fitness journey.
Okay.
And it's gone from spark, speed, agility, reaction, quickness, coaching, soccer specific, having aspirations, going from kind of like the me portion of it to now I'm coaching other people. Now I'm learning more about holistic nutrition, and moving on to each of those different domains or those different quadrants of now the mindset. Yeah. And because we know so much of what happens, whether it's me, whether it's they're a girl showing how to do Romanian deadlifts or the guy benching 400 pounds, something happens that's significantly emotionally linked to their thought. Okay. Right, and so their thoughts become emotion. Those emotions, we kind of talked on the phone about this.
And that's with the sensors and scanners that they can plug up to somebody. So when they're doing something, you can see on a screen. Is that what you're getting at?
No, I'm talking, that would be really cool. I don't know if that's out there, but that would be really cool to be able to get into somebody's mind, and based on hormone cascades, synapse activation, all that stuff.
I've seen, they show people an image and they have like this readout on the screen, they have sensors to their head. How does their brain react when they see an image compared to another image?
Sure, okay.
So I would assume maybe I'm sure they should already have it where.
So I think that's more sensory perception because those images are external, although they're seeing those images through the filter of their own life experiences.
I see what you're saying.
Right? But even at a more basal, foundational, kind of like wiring perspective, thoughts, no matter what they are, those thoughts create emotion.
Yes,
and emotion can be looked at in our bodies as hormones, and those hormones cascade up and down. Those are reactions. There's electricity, there's molecule, there's energy exchange, there's energy uptake. That energy
within us,
that energy, or the energy field, you can call it, requires action. Like you have to make a decision, and those decisions turn into who you are, and who you are shows up in benching 400 pounds. Who you are, or your identity, shows up in how you're trying to show, educate, teach, or even if you're just sharing a journey. So,
well, speaking about negativity, let me ask you this: in your journey, transforming or consistently transforming your body physically and then your mental state, what are some hiccups or a hiccup that you had? Because we're still human beings, okay?
Yeah.
And I remember we had talked one time, and we won't go into the super detail of name calling or who it was.
Sure.
But I remember you mentioned that there was something that you kind of something regarding a female at the time, that you just kind of, for a little bit, but then you pulled yourself back up.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that?
Specifically,
we don't have to go into all the we don't have to go into all the details, but what your mental state where you dipped. And then you pulled yourself out of.
Yeah, so if we're just giving like the broad brush stroke approach, I was in a place with my business and dieting an awful lot, which I believe caused me to kind of be in sort of a depressed, mentally degraded state. Got into a relationship which was wildly abusive, mentally, emotionally, all that stuff. Ended up losing.
Toxic.
Super, like unbelievably toxic, like Tarantino movie version toxic, minus actual dead people. They actually died. But I lost just about everything, more than I thought I actually had. And so basically at a place where I felt like I was, man, this is it. This is a rock bottom. Like, do I either lay down and die, or do I get up and I do the one next thing? And so there were a number of different things that took me from that place of making a decision. Am I picking this store? Am I going to take the blue pill? Am I going to take the red pill?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And so I had to make a decision. What do I want the rest of my life to look like?
I see.
And I think just in general as an entrepreneur, and or solopreneur, anybody that's working for themselves or has a small team, and you feel that weight, that pressure on you, you are struck with that intersection of truth.
There's no one to blame
every
but you.
single day. Yeah,
There's no one to blame but you.
And even more than just the blame component, it is, where am I going to take this? What legacy am I going to leave? Like, do I really want to do this? Is it just going to be easier for me to move over and do the 9 to 5 when I know I can get X number of dollars, I can get X number of vacation, things will be predictable. Predictable. That'd be nice.
Security blanket, I think they call it.
Yeah, in my opinion, sometimes a false security blanket.
Yeah. And I've been there, done. That's why I understand how it goes.
Yeah. And for those who that makes the most sense for, more power to them. For me, it doesn't. So kind of back to what door do I choose? And I just chose the one that was a low-hanging fruit. I operated in a very low gear for a long time until I got to a place where I was stacking. My buddy Brandon says stacking bricks. Stacking bricks.
Stacking paper.
Yeah, stack paper, stack bricks, like just whatever it is. And pretty soon you have this beautiful wall, and you're like, man, look, Did I actually make that wall?
Did I pull that?
Well, that's really cool. Like, if I made that wall, who's to say I can't just make another one? You know, and you start to see the true inspiration, not just the cascade of norepinephrine and the other excitable hormones that you get when you watch like the Mateus inspirational click videos, but actual real inspiration. Like, hey, I actually did this.
You created
I had this reference
something.
Experience. Yeah, this is now who I am, because I went from a place, and a lot of your viewers, maybe you've even experienced something like this, where you went through something, even if it was a compressed, abbreviated time period, but you began to identify yourself as that type of person because of those external factors, and you let the noise of the outside world tell you that you weren't good enough. Or in my case, the noise of the perceived world inside of that relationship tell me I was garbage. You know, and so it took me a while to get to a place where
That's an interesting way to look at it, by the way. Or explain it, actually.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think that's a really simple, kind of powerful way that everybody can resonate with, because everybody's been in a pit. Everybody's been in a darkness. But I think one of the things that, if anybody really needs to hear this message, the one thing I could say that would be take home would be recognize that your darkness is no different than anybody else's. That you're not alone in those things.
Everybody and so give yourself, we're humans.
Give yourself permission to keep going. Give yourself permission to take that one next step. Don't worry about even step 3 or 4 or even number 2. Just do step 1.
Okay.
And if you can do that thing, then you have proven to yourself.
I think they call it.
Yeah, chunking, right?
Yeah,
what was the movie where? And I think the guy wrote a book, The Survivor, where the Marine team, I think there's 4 or 5 of them. Okay. And I feel completely un-American for not remembering the
Born on the 4th of July.
No. Yeah, not that one. But in any case, they got stuck. I think it was in the Middle East somewhere, and they ended up being barely alive. And the one last guy. And I hope I'm not butchering this story or combining stories, but
along the
lines of this guy having to get to a certain point. And so he was literally crawling in the desert, and he would pick a line, and visually he would see the line, which I think in the book said it wasn't more than like 3 yards away. And he's like, all right, all I got to do is get to that line 3 yards away. Army crawling, because his leg was shot or broken or something like that. Take a rest. Okay, all I got to do is get to that line. And he would chunk it. He would literally just do the work that was in front of him, not being dissuaded by the intimidation of the mountain. Yeah, up top. So,
and you know what's funny? You say that. I did Tough Mudder, was it 2010? 2011. It was Page, Texas, and Dripping Springs.
Okay.
We did Tough Mudder.
Yeah, so not far away.
Yeah. And it was really interesting because we looked at it like, complete this obstacle. Don't worry about the 12 miles that we had to run. Worry about this one. And then it was, okay, the next one, and the next one. So it's kind of the same thing where it was like literally right in front of us and not worrying about 12 miles of getting shocked and all kinds of weirdo stuff.
Hard pass.
Yeah. But I mean, it was interesting. So now you pulled yourself out of this hiccup, we'll call it, that you had in life.
Sure.
So your mental state totally changed, obviously. Now, you know, because we have a few more minutes, connecting the mental state or the mental transition to pull you out, how does that correlate with people that are, how can I say, within fitness, using the power of their mind to transform their bodies? How do you see the power of the mind over the power of the physical body to totally change the way you're doing things, actually?
It's simple. If you think, who said it? Was it Henry Ford?
create your own reality, maybe, or
the best way to create your own, anticipate your reality is to create it. Whether you think you're right or you think you're wrong, then you're right.
I see.
Or you think I'm butchering these things today, but you get the idea. Is that the perception of life, the reality that we live in, starts in the mind.
Okay.
The reality that we want. I've always been a proponent of the two lives theory. There's a life that we live and a life that lives inside of us.
Okay.
And the goal.
And when you say that conscious, subconsciousness type of thing, or
I'm going to speak on the conscious level.
Okay.
Because subconscious is how we train our mind, neuroplasticity through the practice of repetition, very specific types of repetition, to give yourself permission to actually allow those two lives to merge into one. Okay. Right. But yeah, in general, how did that work for somebody in fitness is basically opening up to possibility. Okay. In a way that you're being honest with yourself. You're not bullshitting yourself. You're not. Can I cuss? Sorry.
Yeah,
you can't. Don't BS yourself. Don't BS other people. But then also commit to doing what's in front of you.
I see.
If you enter into this framework of possibility, of life being about expansion, life being about growth, life being about becoming more than what's already here, through those frameworks, then you'll begin to see that the veil start to lift. Yeah. And without even making decisions, without even taking actions, you'll start to see all these options start to line up in front of you. Inside of fitness, when I talk with somebody, whether I'm working with somebody just on the nutrition, or I'm working with somebody in the full Mind Body Blueprint program, then my primary responsibility is to get them practiced at the skill of opening up to possibility. Because when we do that, naturally,
they might have fears that.
They absolutely will have fears. Absolutely will have fears. And those fears are points of power access. Those fears are opportunities, because you and I both know that moving through a fear will allow you to find that power on the other side.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny you say that. Even something as simple as going to a swimming pool and not wearing a shirt over yourself. Because I've seen people that go to a swimming pool to go swimming, and they'll wear a shirt over, and I didn't understand that until later on. That I got low, you know what I'm saying? But I was like, now I understand where sometimes I wouldn't want to go to. There were points in my life I didn't want to go to a swimming pool if I didn't wear a shirt over it, because I was insecure, or I had this fear. Oh my gosh, my belly hangs out a little too much, or this or that, or whatever it could be. So
fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough.
Yes. So I totally understand that. What is a common factor that you see with the people that you train, speaking of fear or speaking just mindset, that, once again, we're human, so we have a lot of common factors. Yeah. But what are some of the top 2 or top 3 that you said, oh, here's another one that has this issue, or do you get what I'm saying?
I would say the top 2 things I see the most are... is just fear, things anticipating a undesirable result, something unhappy in the future. Based on illogical, unreasonable fears, right? Because a friend said something, because I saw something on TV.
Events that happened when they were 14 years old or 20 years.
Those would be what I would call anchors. Those would be reasonable fears that they're now taking that scheme or that block of personal experience and then placing it on something new. Right? So those 2 actually would be good general descriptions of when somebody moves into a thing. No, I can't do this. I can't do this. Yes, you can. Remember we did this. Remember we did this. Here's what the incremental adjustment is. This is something you've already proven quantitatively that you can do. I've even had people where I'm pushing them, walking them through something. They're in the middle of doing, let's say, like a leg press movement. They're in the middle of doing, their first 60-second plank. And while they're in the middle of doing it, hard reality proof that says they can do this thing, they're saying, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it.
Just go!
Because they're not present. Because they're not recognizing that right now, in this moment, they are actually doing the thing. Because they're still in the future. They're still experiencing the fear, false expectation appearing real. They're experiencing something that isn't real. And they're having a hard time getting out of the future. Oftentimes with regret, they'll bring that up. They're having a hard time getting out of the past. People are having a hard time staying present and recognizing that I can actually push this weight in the tempo and at the rate, or even if it's standing to balance, I can actually balance on one foot. So
I see.
Yeah, so it's pretty wild to see that come up and how silly it seems to the outside.
Yeah.
But internally knowing maybe somebody went through a trauma or this is 100% a new thing to them, giving themselves permission to open up to the possibility that, hey, I can actually do this thing.
Yeah. They've never lifted anything heavier than a slice of cheesecake, for example.
Or nutrition in general. They've never meal prepped.
Yeah.
Maybe they're like, man, I don't know how to cook. Okay, well, have you practiced? No. How many times have you cooked chicken?
Never.
Like never.
Fried chicken.
How would it make sense to say you have zero experience, zero reference experience to say you can create any result? So why would you automatically? Well, we know why we would automatically go to.
I never. Yeah. No one helped me.
Yeah, and so that's kind of like the logical brain, right? As opposed to the logical brain that is problem solving, that keeps us alive, very very much part of the reptilian and the limbic brain. Yeah. We know as the fight, flight,
amygdala
or freeze. Yeah, all those like basic functional, keeping your body alive. Okay. As opposed to the imaginary, where we start talking about moving into theta state, which is like right after you wake up in the morning and you're kind of like, not quite awake yet. That's theta kind of dream state. Putting on your imagination cap, they teach kids, drawing and just kind of like that sort of thing. Those are two stark different things. But without going on a ramble, because I love talking about this stuff, those things will always work in concert with each other. Okay. And being able to move yourself into a mode of learning, or I mentioned the term neuroplasticity, being able to learn things through repetition. Being able to influence that in the way that you want is a very real thing.
And make it happen. So now, to close it out, and these are things that I want to watch this back now to really catch certain things that you said, because I know it's like, it sparked an interest. I'm like, now I have to go research that or look into just even words that you've said.
Which is always a goal. I always want to create a bit of a call to action.
No. It's great because people watching are like, wait a second, because it's issue I've been having. Yeah. So now, to close it out, what is something that you want to leave the people with in regards to whether it's life as an entrepreneur, solopreneur, or total body fitness, mind and physical? What's your words of inspiration to close this out?
I would say I like to talk imagination. I like to, as you've seen, I like to create really good copy and put it on my my Instagram based on my own personal experiences and give somebody that rush of you can do this type of emotion. But when it comes to actually doing something, I'm very pragmatic and very kind of logical in my approach. So if anybody were to take something away from this, it would be if you have a goal, and we've all heard this before, so this is nothing new. If you have a goal, free write about it.
You're confirming that it actually
I'm confirming
works.
This. Actually, I know this because this is what I teach people. This is what I've been coached in. So write it down. Put an image to it. Put it in a place that's important to you. Create an experience where you have a purposeful, meaningful, even if it's small, kind of event that you have now created. Like, I did this thing for this purpose. This is what the result was because it's attached to this goal. Write stuff down. Start tracking things, make a log, people do vision boards. I tried to do that a bunch of times. It didn't really work for me. But writing things down on checklists really worked for me. Conversational forms that I use for my clients really work for me. So takeaway is get out of your head and put it on paper, and you will be surprised in some really powerful ways how minimizing the pain starts to become and how possible the dreams start to become.
And you know, it's really funny you say that. So obviously I'm a marketing guy. I teach marketing, branding workshops. One of the things that I've been doing lately is I used to give handouts. Okay, this is what we're going to talk about and blah, blah, blah. I've literally started like half of it. I don't even give the handout anymore. I say, I want you guys to write it down because it's more valuable to you when you write it down, see it in your own handwriting, and you're less likely to lose it or throw it away if it's in your own handwriting. And that's why I want them to do that.
Yeah, because when you write it down, you've kinesthetized a thought.
Yes.
You've created fine motor movement that goes from here to here and back. We call it afferent and efferent nerves.
Rather than just, here you go, here's another handout, boom, workshop.
Boom, and it's like even some of the stuff that I'm working with, and I don't mean to ramble because I know we're short on time, but even some of the stuff that I'm doing that's on the cell phone, there are going to be parts of it where I will require people to get something out and write it down because you cannot create the same
doing notes on the digital.
You can do it all you want, and this, I mean, maybe for the millennials these days, that's something that makes sense because script wasn't really a thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm kind of speaking in generalities.
No cursive,
maybe there was, maybe there was.
Or now they don't do cursive much or whatever.
But in general, kinesthetizing movement, painting, drawing, writing, calligraphy, whatever it is, that creates muscle memory. And that's ultimately the link between thoughts and reality is what you can do with your body. And your body starts to do, you don't have to think about doing something, your body just magically does it. Yeah. By the way, look up B-Boy Pocket if you've never seen. B-Boy Pocket, have you seen him? I haven't, but I will say that it's not magical, it's actually hormones. Like our cells have memory, our hormones have memory. Yes. And when you think a thing, then that emotion is hormones. If you can see something sad, and it will remind you of a sad experience you had back in your life, especially if it was traumatic, and you will experience the same hormone cascade as when you experienced that trauma. Yeah. Right? And so it's not magical, it's you had a trauma or you had a practice of events that created that hormone cascade, and that's why your cells remember those feelings. Yes. Well, it was an interesting talk. Yeah. Hey, I appreciate you, brother. This was awesome. Thanks for having me. Very well.